Hello and welcome back to A Better World. This is your host, Mitchell J. Rabin, and we're very glad that you're joining us again today. Today we're going to have another very interesting show. We're very pleased to have with us Aimiee Carruth, who is a hands-on healer, and she's been doing a kind of healing that many people haven't even heard about, Axiotonal Healing. She's also accomplished in a number of other healing modalities, but today we're going to be speaking specifically about this, working with light. In fact, primordial light, if you will. And Aimiee has a lot to say about it. She's very interesting, and I hope you all enjoy it. Aimiee, thanks for being on the show.
Well, thank you.
Absolutely.
Thank you. I appreciate this.
Yes.
Thank you. I did like the line about the primordial light.
Uh-huh.
There is an awful lot that people simply don't understand about how we have become human.
Well, what's so striking and what interested me about the work you do, distinct from many other healers, is that you're working with, you could say, the most primordial element of all life itself, not just human life. And so from a healing point of view, the implications are profound. First of all, if you would, just define axiotonal healing, and then we'll start probably going back from there.
Sure. Everything that there is that has ever been manifest, ever, has a blueprint. There is a standardization feature that is recognized.
As we refer to genetic code, for instance.
Genetic code, how we are different from apes, but how we are different from oak trees and blue whales.
So species definition.
Species definition. And what this particular work is that this seems to be the species blueprint for human beings. All of us are built the same. All of us have 2 arms, 2 legs, hopefully 1 head. And what this work actually does is it works with that particular blueprint or grid to call it forward again. When we have, since we've all been born, we have accommodated who we are in very profound and very subtle ways. And what that does is that it helps us to fit into what I call the local realm. All right? But it also turns down the innate knowing and awareness that we all came in with.
So there's a suggestion that we have come from, let's say, this primordial pure light grown into, formed into a species based on the blueprint. And within that growing, there's been some imbalance or some distortion.
Accommodation.
Which is, in a sense, an imbalance or distortion from the idealized form or fulfillment of the blueprint.
The implication of the word that I choose to use has a different meaning for me. Imbalance typically will mean something to someone. You're imbalanced many times will throw somebody's guard up. If you talk with someone and they speak about their parents or their school or their whatever, what over a longer period of time, what they will find is that they simply have accepted what maybe
and they have accommodated it.
They have accommodated.
Right.
They've turned down their innate knowingness. When you tell a 5-year-old that they can't do it, it may be for the best for that 5-year-old to not be doing that at that point in time. It may save their life in some cases.
So the accommodation would be a wise one.
And comes in many times from people that have a different understanding and knowingness. We each one of us structure for children and we structure for other individuals in our own environment. And if you want to fit into that environment, what you do is you accommodate to that local field. Fish will grow to a particular size in an aquarium. The minute you move them to a bigger aquarium, they become larger fish. They accommodate to the local field.
Exactly.
While not change in height, we will accommodate who it is that we are for our environment.
And in fact, when we change our idea of who it is we are,
Right.
we can actually even change our height,
Yes, we can.
if you will.
Yes, we can.
Right.
One of the advantages that I've found about the axiotonal work is that it doesn't work with the consciousness, pure vibration. That with an intention to experience physical realm has slowed down. We are energy that had been moving prior to even light speed. And in order to become manifest, you slow down. And when light slows down, first it becomes sound, and then it becomes manifest. Okay? So we are basically
It's part of a great
slowed down.
contraction,
Yes,
if you will.
it is. Yes, it is. Yes, it is. And then what happens here is that as we have slowed down our light in order to experience being physical, inside of that, we compress or contract the light that we are. We try and contain our knowingness into a relatively small space. We are pinpoints of light.
We could say within the form and structure of our physical body,
Yes.
and actually have no, usually, idea of that light and beingness extending beyond the frame of our physical body.
Yes. Yes.
Even
certainly.
though we have factual scientific data that shows that it does.
Yes.
Not to mention a knowingness that it does.
A feelingness. A feelingness that says, I
Well,
go
the
beyond.
knowingness could come from a feeling.
Many times, I believe so.
See, we're impossible because we're both hypnotherapists and very sensitive to language. So this is what goes on.
We'll negotiate.
I
our
felt
way
like I
through
had
this
to
one
accommodate
here.
them, you
Yes.
know?
And
So-
they'll get it anyway. It's
Exactly,
okay.
exactly. Vibrationally, if nothing
Right.
more.
Right, right.
So when you work with somebody, Aimee, could you just talk a little bit about what
Sure.
that process is?
Sure. I have someone on the table. What I have told them originally anyway is that light moves in a straight line. What changes or bends light is consciousness. Okay? So what we are, in defining who it is that we are as a species now, we have taken and defined by light into human shape and form. All right?
Yeah.
The work that I do is actually a series of straight lines that run through the body. And it has been recognized in some instances to be actually a precursor to acupuncture meridians. Acupuncture meridians move with the body. They can form in many ways.
And they're not straight.
And they're not straight. The axiotonal lines are very, very straight. Very, very straight. And there's a vibration that I will hear when I touch someone. Some of my students actually have developed that as an ability also.
That kind of skill. So when you also teach this
Yes,
work.
I do. Yes, I do.
And
I love
there
to
are
teach.
few who do.
There are not even a dozen that I've been able to find, actually, in moving through the internet at this point in time.
Where does this work originate?
Actually, in
In the primordial light, other than that.
I would have to say that the Creator gave this one to us. I would
Yes.
have to say that.
I wouldn't doubt it.
The other thing that I will say here is that in the ancient traditions, there are practitioners that do know about this. I have spoken to individuals both from an Ayurvedic, from an acupuncture, I spoke with a gentleman who was brought in as being the Archdruid of England. He knew exactly what it was that I was talking about. Native Americans, in some cases, know what it is that I'm talking about.
Now, is there someone in particular, understood that it's part of the collective consciousness, as you just basically described
Right.
historically? Is there anyone in recent history, for instance, who you studied with, that has revived the tradition
Well, my teacher,
or reinvented it?
call it forward probably. My teacher says that she had been born seeing, or when she was a child, she had seen lines within people and she didn't know what that meant. And she, as she grew, she developed the ability to both see more lines, and then she decided to touch the lines and see what happened. And she found that people would change in very, very subtle ways, but very significant ways. Because as the light itself becomes clearer, there is less need to hold a polarity or an action within that. Once someone remembers that they are truly a being of light, many times, either the relationships or the work or whatever it is in a mundane realm that haven't served that knowingness simply dissolve away. The magnetic attractor, if you will, wasn't present any longer once the light became more powerful and more present.
Could you explain that last statement?
Yes, I believe. Where I hear light and sound, when I work with someone, the original intention that I have as a practitioner is to call them forward. That's not the same thing as me deciding that you have to be rearranged because your shoulder is sore or because something is going on in your throat.
Mm-hmm.
That's the local field,
Mm-hmm.
okay? The difference between holistic and allopathic work is that holistic work views the body as a whole.
Sure.
Too much energy maybe over here, too little energy over there, and then there would be, in that would be acupuncture, a balancing.
Between
okay?
excess and deficiency.
Mhm. And I don't even look at that.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't matter because the entire energetic field has been in an accommodation since birth
Yes.
and prior,
Mm-hmm.
and prior.
God knows in the womb.
Right, and
Sure.
prior. And what I talk about many times are the local ingredients of what has called forward the presence of this light to be formed here. The local ingredients
Yeah.
are the DNA. The local ingredients would be the nutrition that the mom and the dad have
Sure.
had. It would also be the drugs that mom or dad have been taking. It would also be whatever it is in the environment, as we've witnessed
Exactly.
with Chernobyl and Love Canal. What are the local ingredients? And how do the local ingredients affect the being of light that's coming in? Now, with the axiotonal, as the being of light emerges, the light carries forward and defines itself very, very differently than the local accommodations.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? So from that standpoint, I've had actually people get up off of the table without birth defects. A birth defect is accommodation. Okay? Height changes would be a local accommodation. I've had people change height. Mostly, however...
And are they able to maintain it?
Yes.
Because that's very important.
Yes.
Because it's one thing for people to have breakthroughs
Yes.
in their lives.
And then hold it.
Emotional, psychological, of
Sure,
a sort. Exactly.
sure.
And then they see the light, if you will, have the experience, begin to metabolize it, and then go back to their ordinary ways
Right.
of living and being and recontract into that
Right.
original, if you will, accommodation.
Now, I'm not going to say that that doesn't happen.
Sure.
Okay? What I am going to say there is that when that has happened, many times people have a very different style of consciousness around that.
Yeah.
They recognize that for whatever reasons, this is going to be something that they're going to keep in their life. And at that point in time, they start then, it's a different style of an accommodation.
There's a
it's
shift.
more conscious.
Right. There's a shift. There's a difference in awareness
Right.
and a difference in the way they relate to their body
Right.
and essentially their body of light.
Yes.
Yeah. Very
Now, one of the
interesting.
things that I'm going to say when you said see the light, all right, what I'm going to do is kind of retract that a little bit or reframe that a bit because they are light. Okay?
And basically, we were pointing the finger at they see themselves.
They see themselves. And the difference is other people see them. Other people see
Yeah.
the light that is then emitting
So interesting.
from their body, from their eyes, from their presence. They carry themselves very, very differently. They carry themselves as a being of light.
Right.
Many times what I've had, my students, my clients, will call me back in 2 months or 3 months and say, you know, I didn't know what it was that was happening and I trusted that. And things have changed in my life. But they couldn't exactly put their finger on how. And that's the most powerful form of work that there is.
Yes.
I would not choose to confront someone's consciousness. And there are times that I do it all the time. So I'm not going to say that I don't. But with this session, what I will say is that that is not even remotely part of the picture. The person on the table is a being of light that I have never met. And this particular work is an invitation not through my consciousness to give them who they are. The invitation is for their light to come and be present within them. So literally, this session is calling light through their framework of cell structure.
And you see yourself,
so that it
as
embodies
you've described, as a technician.
Absolutely.
As someone who is facilitating that.
Yes. I didn't design the grid. I just know how to work with it.
You're not even conducting energy through you to accomplish the mission.
No.
That's another important point for people to know, because
No.
there are many healers, and some of them quite good, who have a different way of working.
Yes.
But that's not axiotonal work. I
No.
think that's the point that I really want to emphasize.
Right, it's
This is a
not.
different approach.
You have your moment of perfection. You have who it is that you knew you were going to be here prior to you ever having manifested.
Sure.
And that manifestation occurs in episodes of time constantly. We are in and out of light. We are holographic, if you want to look at it
We
that
were in
way.
and out of time as well.
Yes, absolutely. And then from that standpoint, you're the one that knows, even if you don't have it locally, consciously. Your innate perfection knows exactly who you were to have been here.
Sure.
I don't have that,
Sure.
okay? Even my best guess wouldn't be that for you,
Sure.
all right?
That's as personal as it gets.
Absolutely.
Actually.
Absolutely.
Right.
So from that, the best thing that I can do is simply ask that, say, your energy present itself and stay out of the way. And what happens is I will hear as light and sound changes within someone's framework.
Would you say, Aimee, that are you straightening those grid lines out from the local field / the accommodation of a person's life?
Okay, this is a very, not touchy. People that have had no accidents in their life have a very straightforward series of grids. Very, very straightforward series of lines. And as an acupuncturist, you will know that a point will jump from one space to another space if there's a surgery, okay? Many times what I'm dealing with...
Talk about accommodations.
Right, that's an accommodation because the light is going to have to be there. And if it can't come forward at that point, it will come forward beside it at another one. So what happens with people in a space of injuries, long-term and chronic something or other, their light has made an accommodation to still be present, to still be available, but it may in fact not be in the direct body alignment that it should be.
So my question is, are you realigning?
Yes.
Or helping the being realign the light so it's straight and not bent?
Convoluted. Typically, I will say...
Accommodated.
Right. Typically, I will say that 70 to 80% of the time, the lines are very, very straight. I don't need to worry about that. They get turned up. Like a dimmer switch turns up light for a wall, or light. A dimmer switch will do this. So the electricity is present. Your light is present and available. It can be turned up. I would say that that's what it is that I'm doing 80% of the time. 20% of the time, what I will say is the people that have had an accident, their light has moved. A birth defect is a shift of the blueprint. And from that standpoint, when the light is realigned, the birth defect is not necessary in the body any longer.
So interesting.
I've had scoliosis back shift. I've had more, it's been spinal, it has been curvature of legs and knees, hips, that kind of thing that has shifted. I've had jaws shift. I've seen facial birth defects change.
Incredible. You could say that the first, coming into a physical form is in a way
accommodation
is
of
an
light.
accommodation
Yes, it is.
itself.
Yes, it
and
is.
one of the first things to grow in that structure is the bone structure.
Yes.
Certainly the hardest part of it.
The framework.
So
the actual framework.
right. The skeleton of it.
And the way that I see this work happening is at the time of conception, there's a fertilized egg, and then that splits. That moves to 2, it moves to 4, and it moves to 8. And at 8, there's a split at that point that becomes the top and the bottom of the spinal column alignment. Now, light enters through those particular cells. Once they've split, what that means is that light enters both from the top and from the bottom consistently. Okay?
Yes.
It's the cluster inside of the brain is a very, very small cluster beneath the pineal gland. When I have done some sessions, what I will say is it's almost like a gateway opens up within that cluster and light emerges through that gateway and then comes to me. Okay? So the top and the bottom of the spinal column alignment literally drive the pillar of light for this presence, this light being. That's the pillar of light that people work with. It's the spinal column alignment.
Sure.
At that point, then in the development of this being, there are no polarities here at this point in time. Okay? The polarities emerge more down the road. They emerge with gender.
But really, not to put too fine a point on it, especially with the time accommodation we have to make, but as soon as you get a splitting and a top and a bottom, you've actually got a polarity. You've got the definition of a polarity from a oneness.
Well, that's...
Actually, as soon as you have the first division of a cell, of the zygote.
You could look at it that way. When I look at the spinal column, I look at that as a pillar of light as being a wholeness. Okay?
Yeah.
Because when the light is whole and it's present within both of those spaces, there are no polarities there. It's a pure pillar of light. Polarities more, I find, are, an accommodation. And many times people put
it has a relative meaning.
It does.
In a sense. And that's okay, exactly. I mean, you could go so far as to say that column is before it has charges of positive and negative.
Right.
You used the word holistic before. Well, we can go the next full step of holistic and say, if the light is coming in from above and from below, it's a column amidst the existence of a body of light, which is the universe itself. Not to be too abstract, but
we are the manifestation of the universe itself.
Exactly.
And
so it's a continuum, but it's a bit of a contracted continuum.
In and out would be two of the polarizations. And that's what I recognize for energy.
Right.
Either it's present or it's not present.
Sure.
It doesn't have anything to do with, for me, it has nothing to do with positive or negative. It has nothing to do with good or bad. It has to do with present or not present.
Right.
And when light is present, when it is present, people recognize that very,
so
very
light
clearly.
Isn't dependent on any, like for instance, electricity.
No.
Has a positive and a negative charge. That's what I meant when I said positive and negative.
You could look at positive and negative as being the electrical system and the magnetic system. Okay, the magnetic system would be more the holding capacity of the chakras and holding memory, holding awareness, holding presence.
As magnetic tape holds the impression of what's recorded onto it. It's a recorder.
And then the electrical system is the inspiration.
Right.
Inspired. That's the point of light, and that's the significant piece of being present over and over and over again.
Exactly, and that's the vitality also.
Right.
It's the vivifying aspect, if you will.
Absolutely.
Right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So when...
It's beautiful. It really is.
I do love the work.
I could tell. I
do love the work.
And it's clear that people won't come to you for this work necessarily if they just have a lot of headaches. They'll be coming if they can perceive something of this level of understanding of really the nature of their being.
Many times what I find, and I find this 100% of the time, is that the axiotonal supports everything else that there is here. Because if in fact it is the foundation piece for this species,
Yes, indeed.
if in fact it is, it supports absolutely everything that there is that would be available to do with a being.
Yeah.
Everything
yeah.
can be built
It's that
off of this.
foundational.
Yes.
I understand.
Yes, it is.
Perhaps most people, when they think about healing, are not necessarily recognizing it as being this potentially complete.
No, no.
This is written up, is it not, or referred to in the Keys of Enoch,
Oh, yes.
channeled by J.J. Hurtak,
Yes,
correct?
yes, it is. Chapter 317. And actually, then also, there is another chapter that speaks about this as horizontal and vertical lines, and that's chapter 110. When I see the lines, in fact, they're not lines. A line is actually a plane of energy, depending on how you view it. If you view it from front or you view it from the side, it actually is the dynamic plane of energy. And we are, in fact, several planes of energy interwoven to create the foundation for who it is that we are here. And those planes of energy have languages within them. And I hear that.
So, in short, someone who...
You're going to make this in short, are you?
I must, because now I'm out of time. If someone wants to straighten out the light grids of their body, and in a sense really get a truer, closer sense of who it is they are, what it is they came into this life, into this form to accomplish, this work supports that.
This work calls forward their original intention as beings of light to be present in this physical realm.
It's beautiful. Thank you so much for coming
You're very
on
welcome.
and sharing this wealth of knowledge and high-level intelligence. It really is. It's a real gift that you're giving us, Aimee.
Well, thank you. Thank you for asking me again.
Sure. Absolutely.
Enjoy.
I will, and I am. Thanks so much.
Very
And
good.
you do sessions and you teach
Yes.
locally in the
Yes.
general New York area
Yes. Oh, I
and
teach-
elsewhere.
I teach all over, sure.
So
And the number to reach me?
we'll
Should I-
put it on
Okay.
afterwards.
Very good. Thank
So
you very much.
Thanks
sir.
so much for being part of this.
Namaste.
Absolutely. This is Mitchell J. Rabin for A Better World. I hope you enjoyed that as I did. Very powerful material, and it's this kind of work that we need more and more of in order to affect our goal, creating a better world for one and all. Thanks so much for joining us, and I look forward to seeing you all next week.